Hi everyone, Mature Simmer here. So, just got up nice and early. Looks like a clear day. I'll get a little bit of cloud cover later, but more importantly, no rain. So, definitely a good day to get the barley taken care of. So, if you're new to the series, welcome. Glad to have you here. This is the VIP Order series, and I'm using the VIP Order Manager mod as the core of what we do here. So we're on level 11 orders. We've been proceeding for a bit. The green orders are the orders that we have completed. So right now, to finish level 11, we've got to get barley and strawberries done. So again, we're going to work on the barley, and strawberries are getting created in our greenhouses, and we'll see where we stand with those in a little bit before we head to the field. I've got a little bit of progress on other things. I've got raisins. I should have plenty of milk. I haven't looked at that this morning. Furniture has completed. I did say at the end of the last episode that I would kind of go ahead and take a look because I knew there were 2 requirements of furniture, but I think we have enough wood because 4 pieces of wood create 5 pieces of furniture, and then a little bit of scrap wood chips that we're selling off and so forth. But we still have 21,000 liters of wood sitting in the carpentry, and it's operating, and we've already got 6,000 liters of furniture sitting out there ready to go. So we'll be able to do that. I made a mistake on the wheat as far as understanding what I need, so we may have enough wheat. Let's take a look. So in fact we do. So we won't have to do anything else. That we'll be prepared immediately to fill that order. We don't have any sorghum, and we're going to have to obviously get the greenhouses cranking on tomatoes. But unlike level 11 that we entered pretty much empty other than having a bunch of sugarcane on the ground, and obviously some slurry having been produced, but I think we still had to wait a little bit for that to get done. We're back in the position with level 12 to hit the ground running once we get the barley and the strawberries taken care of. We're going to have to make some choices on the fields in a bit. Obviously, we're going to plant sorghum somewhere. It probably will be on the local fields because we're going to need 208,000 liters of canola. What we need 150,000 of, which is what I had in my head as wheat, is actually barley. So at some point, if the barley doesn't generate, 228,000 off this field, which it may, that's the hope. You know, we may be in good shape, but eggs is the thing I need to take a look at, which means I need to start getting my chickens producing again. So I need to get them some feed, and I likely want to do that shortly so that we're not waiting at level 14 for those 22,000 liters of eggs to get produced. So let's get on with it. So last night before I gave up and took the rest of the day off and relaxed a little bit, I did get everything staged over here. So we've got the harvester and the trailer to transport the crops where we need them. We have a little bit of barley, so that gives us a little bit of a head start on that 228,000. But obviously then we also need to be able to feed the chickens, and chickens will eat wheat, barley, or sorghum. So we'll take a look at what we've got. We're obviously going to have a little bit of extra wheat as well, but I'm anticipating a good barley harvest here. So let's see how it's going to go. So we get disconnected. We'll get ourselves set here with the header so that we can begin collecting right away. Not on enough. It's always a little tight here if I'm trying to keep off the field, so it's always a bit of a challenge. So we'll bounce around between things here, get ourselves clear. I need to be a little more careful and just ding up my trailer. That doesn't make any sense. Going ahead and starting with the barley harvest. So as I said, we've got a target in total 208,000 if I can do that. It's a lot. We got in the last episode, when we did our wheat, we only got about 30,000. So it was definitely a bit of a challenge just off that small little field. It's possible this field is 7 times the size, but I'm not sure. So the good news is obviously having this large field gives us options. However, the VIP order manager does take into account your total acreage when it tries to size things. So to some degree, while it does help, it's not perfect in any way. So, you know, it's going to be interesting how everything plays out, that's for certain. But I've talked about in the past the challenges here of Riverview, in that, given that we're here in Britain, it's the typical setup of British fields, lots of fences, lots of hedges, very tight quarters, and therefore the size of our implements is kind of limited by what we have the ability to transport. So that is always one of the questions that I think people would raise, is with a field this size, why are you running with a header this small? And that is the reason. Also, obviously, we only have a harvester that holds 9,300 liters, so running with something bigger than that also kind of runs under that situation where I don't know that we'd really get a lot of benefit, because we just fill the harvester significantly faster. So it might save a little bit of time, but I think we would lose that time pretty easily just trying to maneuver around town, especially around that kind of horseshoe bend that takes us through downtown, if we're ever trying to get there with anything. And while at this point I don't know that I have a real need to expand any further, while I am using automation to go ahead and operate these large harvests, just so that I can get them done and do what I need to do on other things, because I'm not always able to have the playtime necessary to sit and manually do it. But I do all manual work in FSN, which is some of the other series that are on the channel as well. And so there isn't a lot of need to, at least, just philosophically for me, to go ahead and do that. Now again, what Courseplay will do, because it's assuming the unloader is going to come by and work with us there, it kind of cuts a spot so that it can do that and show up. Alright, we're sitting here at field 2 unloading. You know what, I need it to be unload combine, that's why it's not pick up and deliver. Whoops. That is what I need. And I should have known I had an issue in the fact that the worker wasn't following along a bit. Like normally I would have expected it would come by earlier, but obviously it has not. So there tends to be a little bit of challenge that happens, because usually in the time it unloads, Courseplay gets a little bit impatient and starts up and tries to move ahead of time. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the dashboard in case it does that, so that I can go ahead and let it hold on. Alright, so it will get clear. We should be okay at this point. Nice thing with the large field is there is room for maneuver, so I would imagine everything should work out pretty well. We're obviously leaving little things in the corner, as you saw as we were running around, but for the most part I think I have everything set to kind of run up at a certain point, so I'm going to check a few things while this moves along. So I do have the pre-call level set at 60%. It should be fine on this field. There's certainly enough room to get around. If you have seen my Mega VIP series, which I do realize I have not had an episode on in months, because I just have not had time to go ahead and work with it, because that's just such a huge time barrier, and that's why I've not committed to consistent episodes on that as I did here, where I try to make sure I stay on the weekly schedule. But if you've seen that, with the size of the fields and so forth, even with the call level at 10 or 20%, it struggles just because of the size of the fields, and by the time it calls and then things get there and get lined up, the way all of this works together, it tends to fill up and stop and doesn't work quite as nicely. But hopefully here, because we should see that moving pretty soon. Now we're continuing to get errors because that tractor needs to be repaired, so it's below the repair threshold. I can't move the camera in a way because of the cliff that lets me see things, so that is what I'm trying to do. It is why the combine has the pipe extended. There you go. So you can see it is showing up. You know, we're at 75%, so this may still be not enough time. Now some of this I also don't know that it has enough room for it to come alongside anyway. But we're going to be really close if this makes it, because the challenge it has is kind of every time the combine turns and changes direction, it has to redo calculations. And so that's where it's kind of hesitating now. Now it might also just be stuck on the cliff. I don't know. I guess I should go back and find out. Yeah, it's backing up, but as you can see, it's full. So now it's going to go and it's going to cut the swath and move itself over. So it's not perfect the way it works, but the nice thing is it can just keep doing things and making progress, and it allows me to keep moving along without impacting. I thought it missed some, but it actually got that. That looked like a really sharp turn. Now I think it's basically not calling because the pipe is not out. So that's what we're waiting for here. But now this should come over, and then what I'll do in the interim is I think I'll drive this tractor over to the workshop quickly, get it repaired, so that we stop having those issues. And honestly, I should probably go ahead. Let me stop that. This should still go and unload. I'm nearly out of fuel here too, so I'm going to want to go ahead and get that taken care of. Did it go by because I've kind of turned things off? Alright, let me go get myself fueled up. So this is why in FSN you'll typically see me repair and fuel up at the end of a job, because invariably this is what happens. You get all excited about moving forward with a task and then suddenly realize I'm going to run out of fuel in about 30 minutes, and obviously that would be bad because I don't have anything to fuel out in the field. So when I talked about earlier the tight horseshoe around the town here, like this is exactly one of those places where it's just not a whole heck of a lot of fun if you have anything large. It's also why I left my header on the field, because I knew with these walls the likelihood of driving through here, it would have been challenging, as you could imagine, because I might fit, but I would barely fit. Alright, so went ahead, restarted this, but the problem is, of course, I don't think there's enough room, so I think we're going to run into the same position where it's going to go down here a little bit, and then it's going to go ahead and cut itself some room for this tractor to get in, and then after that, assuming everything runs properly, I'll go ahead and get the tractor repaired now that we've got everything set for the harvester. So you can see the tractor backing up, kind of moving out of the way as the harvester... Okay, I'm like, that is... like, I was beginning to wonder if it just wasn't going to do what it needed to do here, because that was a heck of a distance, but I guess that's what we had. So it should call this. Why is it backing up? Alright, why it's reversing from combine, I don't know. Sometimes you've got to reset these things. So we'll go ahead, we'll let it do its thing. It obviously has plenty of room to take the full load, and then go ahead. Now I'm hoping it will grab that wheat next time by. It may not. It's always a bit of a challenge here. Alright, so hopefully the harvester will know what it's doing. I'm going to go ahead. I had to play with it a little bit. Somehow in the process of restarting, it ignored the fact that the width is 7.5 meters. I'm hoping everything will work out now. I think I've made a change. I didn't realize that simply stopping course play and moving on, that it kind of looks at that again, but obviously since in the game it's recalculating incorrectly at an 8.2 meter working width for that header, that creates a bit of a problem. So here's our repair spot. So let's go do that. Just get everything taken care of. Alright, so we should be set. I think we'll be fine with the fuel at this point. So I'm going to just let things go because I want to make sure that I get back in time so that we're not making the harvester wait in any way to keep progressing forward. Alright, the question is it moving or is it stuck? It looks like it's stuck. Oh yes, it's absolutely stuck. Alright, let me turn myself around. So that didn't work at all. So again, if you've ever worked with course play and auto drive, you know, they're great tools, but they're not perfect. Alright, at this point it should hopefully pick up where it left off. This is now waiting for the call. It is now back in business. Obviously it's then not going ahead. Okay, now this says 7.5. I know the track I created was based on 7.5, so it should work fine. But I think that's why when it went ahead and did that positioning, it left that little wheat swath after we came back from refueling, and it had emptied a little bit because I had manually gone up to empty, but then because the tractor was still on the automation from auto drive, it had sensed we had moved, and so as soon as I started pouring barley into the trailer, it immediately moved forward, and so I only got a little bit done. I wasn't going to chase it down the field, but I'm hoping that that's the reason it left the wheat there. Obviously we're going to run into the situation again. You know, now we're far enough away that it's not, Farming Simulator isn't rendering the equipment. You know, we can see the field, but basically the tractor has vanished from view. And the reason that has happened is It just doesn't put everything up graphically, just obviously to save performance and so forth. But as we start to go back, because I don't think we're going to hit 60% until we round the curves here, and then start heading back down the field, it might come into view again early enough. I mean, certainly once it starts coming to us, it will. And I was taking a look, because I'm looking at the yield map. I could have lined this field. I did not realize that it had gotten to the point where it really needs to be, and that's partially why we're getting less than optimal yield at this point. So yeah, it's calling it now, but we can't see it where it's starting from. It should just start to come across the field at some point here, and then we'll see where it is. Here it comes. That's right, it was down, way down there. We'll see again if it makes it in time. And it's not looking hopeful, because while it was moving along, so I think I need to change the call time to be a lot earlier. So if you've not done that, this is how we do that. We'll apply that. There we go. See, but just that little move up the field, because it moved and it wasn't following the line, the automation kind of falls off and then recalculates. But wow, it is not working. And I think, again, once it hits 90, it's like I can't get to it in time, so I'm going to back off. Now, it doesn't have to cut any space because it's here, but I think it'll shut its engine off and then call it. So there's a little bit of a time break. So, you know, if you have time to run things, you can usually do it a little more efficiently than Courseplay does. But if you don't have the ability to do it, and I don't for this entire field, which is why I just wanted to get it started, because trying to jump in the middle after you've done things manually, it just gets really, really difficult. So you're best off, if you know you can't finish it all, just start the whole thing with automation. So I'm going to let this keep moving to the point that we get to the delivery point where it's going to go ahead and drop this off at Stu's. So everything should be set, because I've done that earlier in a previous episode with some other things that had to go to Stu's. So we'll see how that works, but I'll return to show you that, and then I think we'll have enough for now until I get the harvest done, and, you know, or the orders getting fulfilled and completed, because obviously that will happen pretty quickly. So I think, yeah, actually what I'm going to want to do, I want a full load here, but I don't want to sell more barley than I need. So I'm going to need to do a limiter. I've never done that before, so I guess I'll go ahead and show that at some point too, if it honors the limiter, and then goes ahead and heads off at that point, because I only need 78,000 liters of barley. So that means I'm going to need the 40,000 I'm going to have now, but then I only need 38,000. I want to save that 2,000 for the next time, because every little bit helps. And if nothing else, save it for the chickens so that I can feed them that for the eggs. So I'm going to let this keep going, and then as we're heading off to Stu's, I'll jump back in. So I'll see you in a little bit. Alright, so this is going ahead and it's exiting the field at this point, because there is a percent once it's close to a certain percent, and I think the default is 90%, so we've hit that. So it's going ahead and saying, well, I'm full, so I'm going to go ahead and deliver. This is going to throw a monkey wrench into things a little bit, in that it's going to need more than 2 trips, but it's okay. that's kind of the benefit of automation. We can kind of just let it do its thing. So I was expecting it to be calling the tractor, and suddenly I looked and saw the tractor barreling across the field toward the exit and realized, oh, I hit the trigger point. So it does look like it's going to be fine. I think I've, had it deliver here before, so I think I've got all the angles correctly and the tight turns and so forth. Biggest one here is going to be the turn here once we get off the bridge. And then it should be good after that, so I can kind of let it do its thing. But yeah, we're fine here. It then obviously needs to get in, dump the straw amount, or the barley amount. I'm seeing yellow, so straw is in my head. But let's take a look, just again make sure. I always like to check and make sure that the VIP order is actually getting properly fulfilled. I've never seen that not happen unless I've truly made an error and delivered product to completely the wrong location. So there you go. But if it does something similar, we're going to end up with 74,000. We're going to be a little bit short, but at some point we'll deal with the limiter. So even now you can see, like, if somehow it were to run full, I'm still going to have 732 that I need to get done. So pretty nice amount there, 36,000 for the barley. And this will go ahead and get itself back. So I'm going to let this keep going, as I mentioned. But now that I've shown how it's going to deliver, you've got an idea of how that works. Obviously, yes, this is now waiting. It kind of puts me there when I switch because it's still in. You've got the helper in there. So you can see the tractor back there coming along. I just kind of ran into a little bit of an issue, and again, it ended up repositioning and so forth. I think getting in, I confused course play again, so just not been good. But here comes the tractor. Now the problem is the unload point is kind of in the middle of the field here, which normally, oh boy, isn't going to be a problem, but clearly is now. So I'm going to let this get back where it needs to be. I'm hoping this will work. There we go, it has a full grain tank. Oh goodness. So yeah, normally, so I guess I'll talk about this now that you've seen the disaster. And I'll leave this in so that again, people can kind of learn it as an example. So if I go ahead and kind of show the tracks, the unloading is there. When this comes back in the field, it needs to get there before it can be called again. And once everything's moving around, as you saw, it kind of all operates and it calls itself here and there around the field. So it was just Murphy's Law, of course, everything that can go wrong will go wrong, that we happen to be stuck right here, right at the unloading point when we needed to move again. And so that created its own traffic jam. But like at this point, like that tractor won't move, it won't go back to the point, and then next time the harvester's going to call it, the tractor's going to be somewhere else. And so I knew once I cut far enough back, I'd be clear of the unload point, and the tractor could come back into the field at any point and be clear of the harvester. So the likelihood for collision should have been pretty low. But of course, we hit that threshold. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I will be back when we're testing if it's going to limit the unloading and then take the last little bit for sale. So I will see you in a bit. At this point, I had some challenges. I had to basically stop the auto drive to change the limiter, but then, you know, once I did that, like at this point it wants to go back. See, it wants to like go back to the pit instead of continuing on, and that just creates a problem. So like I need to get the 1429 here that I have to move, and now I can let it do its thing, because yeah, now see, now it's exiting the field. Let's just hopefully make sure that that's really what it's doing, because right now I think it might also be confused. And it may just go and then try to come back and unload again, which obviously I don't want it to be doing. So I don't know that it can sense that it's 100% full, if that limiter does that or not. So let's see. I mean, given that it says exiting field as opposed to now it's just waiting for call, I have some hope that it's going to work. But so this is that point, and then it should switch to Stu's Pit, and there we go, drive to unload point. So it looks like that works, but a little bit differently than I expected. So I'll see you over there at Stu's, and hopefully everything will work according to plan, because maybe I needed 1430. It tells me 1429, but sometimes these things are a little touchy. Alright, so here we are. We should then be completing the Barley order. So we'll have another VIP order taken care of. And then my intent is, obviously, then I want to store the remainder of the barley. So I still need to unload the combine. Alright, there we go. It has gone green. That is great. The field is done. I seem to keep running into issues on this field, that it always takes longer than the day. So I'm going to need to maybe start earlier whenever I'm working on these fields, and just do a really early morning, like 3-4 a.m. or something. It's possible I would have gotten done earlier. I did realize after I had delivered the VIP order, if you recall, I had set a limit on the trailer of a very small amount, about 1,400 liters, and I neglected to change that as the automation kept running, and it got to be about 7 o'clock at night here before I realized what was going on, because at first I thought the automation had stopped because I only saw about 23,000 liters in the silo, but then I realized that what had actually happened was it was running basically 1,400 liters over there every time, and then obviously when that's all it takes out of the harvester barely moves, is full, and waits, and so I probably spent 4 or 5 hours of game time moving 1,400 liters of barley at a time. So not the most efficient usage of things, so it might have worked a little bit better. But regardless, we are now completed, and I know we were already at 100,000 barley when I looked at it last, but I don't think we have enough here to hit the 150,000 we're going to need. So at some point we're going to need to put more barley into the ground, but we'll worry about that later, because that is exactly when we need to look at it. Here at my silo complex, so let me get this dumped in so that we have everything stored, and we will then take a look and see where we stand. So you can see we have 131,987 liters of barley. So not enough to proceed, but more importantly, we've got simply the strawberries left here, and then we will ultimately be done with level 11. So with a certainty, we will be done with strawberries in the next episode. What I tend to do if I get to the point where it's just a production like this that is holding things up will move things along. If I've got to skip multiple days / months, we will do so. So rest assured, next episode we will finish level 11, and we'll be moving on to taking a look at level 12. But for now, it's pretty late. I'm going to head off to bed, and I'll see you next time.